Hello and welcome. I would like to welcome everyone to Redefining the Significance of You Time for You, by You, because of You. My name is Denise Drinkwalter, and I'm an empowerment life coach supporting women around the world to lean into and realize the importance of you. The goal of this channel is to provide you, the viewer, some takeaways that will help you shift, change, reevaluate, and or become more aware of what is truly possible. We have a variety of incredible guests who will be sharing their life experiences that have helped them become the incredible human beings that they are. Every one of us, sometime in our lives, have always had free time and feel guilty or embarrassed or wrong for taking that time out for ourselves. And so we are here to change that and support you, the viewer, to see what is possible for you when you take the time for you, by you, because of you. Please join me as I welcome Dr. Susan Landers, who has trained and worked in NICU for over 34 years, practicing academic medicine and private practice at 3 different children's hospitals. Dr. Landers has written over 30 peer-reviewed medical papers and has extra training in donor human milk banking and breastfeeding medicine, being an expert in the field for over 6 years, and was a member of a group who wrote policy for the American Academy of Pediatrics, the AAP. Dr. Landers has worked with thousands of critically ill babies and their high-risk mothers, and now works as a consultant for working mothers, helping them learn to identify and avoid or conquer working mother burnout. Welcome, Dr. Landers. What a pleasure it is to have you here with us today. I'm so happy to meet you.
Oh, thank you, Denise. I appreciate the invitation, and please call me Susan.
Okay.
That introduction was so wonderful. And your listeners may be wondering why a neonatologist who worked in the NICU with sick babies is on your podcast talking about for you, by you, because of you. Because I worked full time my whole life and I raised 3 kids. I'm very lucky to have been married to a pediatric nephrologist, another pediatric subspecialist. He was a great dad. And when I was in the hospital working, he was at home taking care of the kids. And we were lucky enough to have a nanny. But there were so many things I learned along the way about taking care of myself. Here I was, a trained physician, subspecially trained, highly trained to take care of others, to take care of critically ill little babies. And nobody stopped and taught me how important it was to take care of myself. So I spent my late 30s. I was still in training in my early 30s. I didn't get married until I was 34. I spent my late 30s learning how to take care of me. And of course, I was having children. It's not an easy path to follow. And our culture, I don't think, teaches women who are out there working, trying to be fulfilled, trying to contribute, wanting to do their jobs. Our culture does not teach them that it is okay to take care of yourself along the way. We all strike out with this notion of we can do it all. Mm-hmm. We can be a mom. We can work full time. We can be a good wife or partner. And you know what? That is the hardest thing on the planet to do. You're shaking your head.
It is no surprise our paths have crossed, because it's exactly the work that I do, right?
Yes.
Because I love that you found it in your 30s. I support women in their 50s and 60s who are still trying to find out who they are and give back to themselves without the guilt, without the well, everybody else needs me first. It's my
Yeah.
job, right?
Well,
Mhm.
when I found it in my 30s, it was kind of an escape from all the kids when I was at home and go for a walk or go for a run.
Yep.
In my 40s, it was join a fitness center and go work out, but they had to have childcare. And
Mhm.
so I would leave work early a couple of days a week and do that and work out either on the treadmill or the elliptical. It wasn't really until my late 40s and 50s, as you say, that I realized that there were so many more things besides exercise to do for me, by me. I had an episode of postpartum depression when I was 40. We had moved to a new city, new jobs. I had three little kids, a baby that was 12 months old, and I became depressed. And my therapist helped me sort through all my priorities. I literally listed them and chose which ones to keep and which ones to let go. And in that process, I learned I like needlework. It's very settling, it's very meditative. I like playing the piano. I was never very good at it, but when you play an instrument, the music just takes you somewhere else and your mind becomes free of your worries. I love walking in nature, and I would take my kids one at a time for nature walks. We lived right on the edge of the big woods, and I learned how to journal. And
Yeah.
that was hard. That was hard. I'm like an outgoing, talkative, emotive person
Yeah.
in the hospital with the moms and dads, with the nurses. But when you sit by yourself and you journal and you write about your feelings, it is so powerful. I don't know if you talk about that with your listeners. I know you talk about exercise
Yeah, I
and
do.
walking and being
Mhm.
in nature. Journaling is something that, for all of us who are left brain people, logical, thoughtful, organized, driven,
Mhm.
that's left brain. When we write, when we journal about things, we are allowing our right brain, our creative brain. I didn't know I had a creative brain. We are allowing that brain
Yeah.
to think and to feel and you know what it does? It unloads things that we need to get out of our body.
Right. Yes.
It
Yes.
is amazing. So by me, for me, because of me, it became different in my 30s and my 40s and my 50s.
Yeah.
Then in my 50s, I took that left turn and did
Yeah.
some extra training and into breastfeeding medicine and donor human milk banking. I knew nothing about that when I started. And that was stimulating. I
Mhm.
actually, I didn't change my job, but I added to it a different layer of expertise. And my partners were going, "What are you doing? That's just silly. Who cares about breastfeeding?" And I went off and became a breastfeeding expert, and I loved it.
Mm.
They didn't know anything about it, and they called me in to help them with their tough cases. And that was so rewarding. I mean,
Right.
I was still taking care of patients, but I
Yeah.
had another skill. I had another way to to care for others, to influence care in the hospital, to teach
Right.
about that care all over the country. That was so fun, and meet with other people at meetings. So your listeners may wonder, why aren't you still doing that? Well, I retired.
Yeah.
I got a little burned out in the NICU
Yeah.
when I was 62 years old. And after retirement and after recovery from my burnout, I said, okay, what am I going to do now? My husband said, why don't you just enjoy doing nothing? And I said, well, that's kind of not me.
Yeah.
So I decided to write a book and to start helping working mothers.
Love it.
Why
Love
working
it.
mothers? Well, that's what most of us are.
Yep.
And that's the hardest nut to crack. And that's the thing that all young women, I think, are struggling with right now. How to do everything for everyone else and still be able to take care of themselves.
Yeah. And I don't know if you experience this, but I sure do in the role that I play in the supports that I give. People start with the external care, and the journaling I find can come later, but I'm
Yes.
finding most people do what I did. Exercise, that's going to make me feel better. And no word of a lie, it sure did, but there was more, right?
Right.
And I love what you're talking about, the journaling piece. I know some people, depends on my clients, some it matches really well with who they are, and some it doesn't.
Right.
But we tap into other creative modalities, right? It could be music, could be dance, could be art. Like there's all kinds of different ways. And things come out that maybe have been pushed down or suppressed for a while.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm like you in terms of my belief and understanding about the body. When it absorbs that energy and holds it for too long, you can become physically ill if you don't process it.
I am a living example. That episode of postpartum depression was not as much postpartum influence as changes in my work environment. So I had 3 little kids and a new baby, and I was turning 40.
Yeah.
And I had a new job I disliked. I was working too many hours. I had a manager I could not get along with.
Yep.
And I just stuffed it all in and work, work, work. And it was just killing me. I mean, it wasn't killing me, but it was hurting me. It was hurting me physically. And I became depressed. Couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. But I kept on working, always work, 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 always work. I'm sure my poor children suffered something because of it, but I considered my children to be respite at that time.
Right.
Whenever I was at home, I was with them and hugging them and doing things with them, and also walking in nature. My son and I were doing lots of runs in the neighborhood. So I think that we discover in different phases of our lives the way to adapt and hopefully support ourselves. My husband was supportive during that time. Our marriage was really in trouble for a year or two. He loved his job. As much as I hated mine, he loved his. So we were really out of sync. And we had to deal with that. And we had to deal with him working less hours and me working more hours. A part of that is my specialty. But we sorted through all the priorities. And you know what? That wonderful man decided that our marriage was more important than his great job. And we decided to move to Austin, where we both had jobs that we liked. And other benefits were kids in public school instead of private school. So there were many reasons to make the move, but we made it together as a couple. And I think we made it mostly for me. I think he realized that if I wasn't happy, the whole family wasn't going to be happy. That's kind of an old wives' tale, but you know, it's so true because women do so much for their families. So if your listeners are not happy, they need to understand that their feeling that way influences every member of their family.
And if we could flip that and say that is very true. So imagine what can happen when you start looking after yourself in new ways and are happy overall. Your whole family will benefit way more than you doing the jobs that you have to do based on the role you play, right?
Exactly. And when you become less burdened by your guilt or your
Yep.
doubts or your struggles, you are free to give more love and
Yeah.
more understanding and more time,
Mm-hmm.
excuse me, and more presence to your children. I felt a difference in how I reacted to nurses, to a bedside nurse over a difficult case. And I would my patience was better,
Yeah.
my tolerance of, if I had to talk to a mom who just was having a really hard time, instead of being impatient, I would pull up a chair, I would sit
Yeah.
down, we would chat. It Taking care of yourself affects every part of you. I love the title of your podcast, For You, By You, Because of You, because we forget we're just,
Yeah.
our culture tells us to take care of everyone else.
Yeah.
That's the message. Women
Yeah.
take care of their children, their families, their husbands, their partners. And then we've thrown in our jobs because we all like to work
Yeah.
or we have to work.
Right.
But we forget,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things we forget to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
One of the things my therapist said that was very helpful, we were listing the priorities. And
Mm-hmm.
the children, the husband, this
Mm-hmm.
project, that project. And I dropped several off the list. He said, something's missing from your list. I said, what? I've got everything here. He said, where are you?
Uh-huh.
I went, oh my God, I need to be on my list. I need to have time for me.
Yeah.
And one of my best pieces of advice for younger women, now I'm
Mm-hmm.
70,
Mm-hmm.
is put yourself on
Yeah.
your list of
Yeah.
priorities. You're just shaking your head. We are so on the same wavelength.
I'm like, we are so on the same wavelength. Absolutely.
Yes.
And as hard as um, it is pivotal, again, not only for you, but for those who are in your energy. And it doesn't matter where they're through your energy, if it's family, if it's work, even if it's somebody you meet on the street, right?
Oh, I never
Yeah.
thought of it as in your energy, but that is exactly what it is. Because we all have, I don't know if it's spirit or energy or uh, an essence, but we
Yeah.
all have this cloud of something that is us.
Yeah.
And we carry it around with us.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was in a bad mood or stressed in the NICU, oh, I could be the meanest doctor and the gruffest person and impatient. And when I was taking care of myself, I could
Mm-hmm.
be tolerant and quiet and calm
Yep.
and loving and giving. And I could see it. And some of the nurses, some of the younger nurses, one I love, she said, you're just like my mom. I said, oh, good. Okay. And she would come up to me and she would say, are you having a bad day today, Dr. Landers? I said, oh, God, Mandy, maybe I am. Thank you for telling me. She could tell.
Yeah.
And she was like a little barometer for me.
Yeah.
And I would go, she's right. She's right.
Yeah.
She knows what her mother acts like in different ways.
Yeah. She's had that experience. So it's interesting too. It doesn't mean we can't have off days. It doesn't mean we have to
Right.
be positive energy every single day, because that is not human. Life
Right.
hits and we're
Right.
like, we have to process those emotions. But in the interim, how are we looking after ourselves through the challenges that life presents, right?
Right.
And when we have looked after ourselves in a way that is gentle, kind, and loving, like we do for everybody else, then everybody wins.
Yes. Well, I need to confess that when I turned 60, I wasn't too upset about turning 60, but it was a very busy year in the NICU. And we had some really ethically challenging cases.
Mm-hmm.
Babies born with potentially lethal birth defects, the tiniest little babies, who, two in particular, who nearly died many times. They had many complications. And despite our efforts to recommend comfort care, palliative care, the parents wanted to press on. And I let those emotionally difficult cases kind of pile up on me.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize that. I was still exercising. I was still out in nature. I was still taking care of myself, but maybe not enough, because those cases began to feel like a burden. And I started to resent caring for those babies because it was so much trouble. I mean, here I was. I mean, I was used to trouble. That was, I don't get what it was, but I was physically exhausted, working too many hours. It was a busy year. I was emotionally, excuse me, overwhelmed. And I know now I was emotionally overwhelmed by those cases and the challenges that those parents were going through. And I started to separate myself from my coworkers and from my patients. I would pull back. I wouldn't hang out in the NICU. I would go hide in the call room. And one day, one of my partners said, "Are you okay?" I went, "No, I'm not okay. I don't feel good. I'm just working too much." He said, "No, it's more than working too much. Have you lost your compassion?" I went, "Oh my God, I have." I mean, you can't be a doctor without compassion. So what happened? I was so burnt out, and I didn't even recognize it. It had snuck up on me, and I had lost my compassion, and I had entered the place where I no longer felt I was making a difference.
Yeah.
Where I no longer felt fulfilled. I mean, doctors love to make a difference. That's what we do. That's what we train for. We love to take care of patients. And I was walking around going, this, who cares? What difference does it make? Like, so I had to do something different. I had to change. I talked to my medical director. I said, "I've got to cut back my hours. I've got to go do something easier. I've got to get out of the NICU for a while. Take a break." He said, "We were trying to establish a contract with a small hospital in our network, a small labor and delivery unit." And he said, "Why don't you go down there?" I wanted to work 35 hours a week. That was a good part-time job. And so I went down there, worked 35 hours a week. I only took call one night a week, and I attended deliveries of normal newborns and examined healthy babies and talked to normal moms and held babies. And we talked about breastfeeding and safe sleep and cuddling and all this. And man, I just started to feel better, started to recover. I had lunch with friends. Well, we haven't talked about that. Friends, so crucial. You have lunch with friends, you tell stories, you laugh, and you catch up, and you remember funny things that happened in your life or in your work. And all of those things, exercise, rekindling friendships, holding beautiful babies, changing your work location, all of those things helped me. And I played the piano again. All of those things helped me recover from my burnout. So even if you do take care of yourself in different ways through the different phases of your life, you can get sidetracked with burnout. It can sneak up on you. And I'm here to confess, it happens. Sometimes we just get caught in that vortex of too much work and too much stress and too much worry and emotionally being overwhelmed, whether it's a difficult marriage, a difficult child, an adult child that's gone off
Yeah.
the rails.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That was the other thing that was happening when I was 60. My youngest was 20 in college, and she was going off the rails. She started
Mm-hmm.
smoking weed. She
Mm-hmm.
started flunking classes.
Yep.
And I felt there was nothing I could do, and she was far away in a different state. And so that added to the emotional overwhelm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Different things grab us from different points of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, everybody knows adolescents are challenging. I think young adults are more challenging. I've changed the subject, but you're a mom forever. And I
Yeah.
know your listeners think if they've had children, sure, it's hard when they're babies and toddlers. And it's different when they're in elementary and middle school. And middle school and high school is challenging. But adult children, their problems are big problems.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Money and jobs and relationships.
Relationships. Yeah.
And do you help them too much? Do you help them enough?
Yeah.
Do you distance yourself? Do you give advice? Never. Do you do you just sit back and listen? I think it's a harder phase of human beings to deal with, young adults.
Yeah, it's a really huge transition in the role of mom as your children become adults, because we know them from day one and we've supported them in a certain way all the way along, changing as you need as they go through their, like you say, their changes and stages of life. But boy, when they become the adults and things happen and the world is happening and the way they even communicate and do world the way than what we did and what we were accustomed. I mean, there's so much. I created a course called Cut the Cord, Not the Ties.
Oh,
for
neat.
exactly that reason.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, neat. I need to take that course because that 20-year-old is now 31 and she still wants a lot of help.
Yeah.
And I'm going, I can't keep giving her help. She's got to become independent. But she's back in college. She's off the weed.
Oh, good.
She's almost near her degree in psychology and is talking about getting a master's so she can get certified as a therapist. So
nice. Oh, see, the bumps are coming forward and you're getting to that smooth road possibly.
Oh, we'll see. I don't know. Did you ever have any smooth roads raising your kids?
Oh, I would say there always is a smooth part in the road, but it doesn't always mean that you're driving the highway at 110 all the time.
Right.
There's veers. There's car crashes that you have to go around that take more time. You have to Yes. There's roadblocks. But we have 3 adult children. Our oldest is 32. She's going to be 32. And our middle girl is 29 and our youngest son is 27. And it's been great ages, and they are an incredible group of kids. We couldn't be more proud of each of them, but not without its hiccups, that's for sure.
Oh, plenty of hiccups.
Right? And so
yes.
Part of why I do what I do is just because people need to know that it's okay and we're able to manage when we step in and actually treat ourselves along the way, get the help we need, whatever that needs to be for you. And you talk about the burnout. Do you find that people aren't even aware that they're in burnout?
I'm totally convinced that people are not aware when they're burned out. Yeah. It happened to me, and I just felt a heavier burden, and I didn't. And I said, well, okay, I've worked hard before. I'll just keep plowing through. Yeah. I did not realize that it was an accumulation of so many different things. And it was not until people pointed out to me that my behavior had changed.
Right.
I created a checklist for burnout in working mothers. It's on my website.
Love
Um,
it.
because, and I sent it out to all my young millennial nursing buddies
Yep.
to test it because it's short, it's only 21 items. I wanted other women to have a way to
Yeah.
say, am I okay? I mean, I know I'm
Mhm.
stressed, but am I just a little stressed? Am I managing? Or am I all the way going to burnout? So
Yep.
um, I didn't know. To answer your question, it snuck up on me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It did.
And
And I think it
and
sneaks up on lots of people.
yeah. And then the thing that I think is important is that it's never too late. You
Oh,
can
heavens, no.
change. So
It's
I
never
think
too
some
late.
people are like, well, I can't change now, right? I can't do anything about it now. I'm just going to carry on and do. That's not true. That doesn't matter your age and it doesn't matter your stage. There is opportunity for growth and change at every
Yes,
junction, at every
yes.
junction.
When I burned out at age 60 and went to that different, smaller,
Yeah.
less stressful practice, as I recovered from my burnout, I grew more than I had grown after my depression at age 40.
Mm.
I did more reading and more self analysis
Yeah.
and more chatting with friends and more journaling and playing the piano and thinking about the issues. And I grew as a person in that
Mm.
process of self analysis. Um, I'm a big advocate for therapy,
Mhm.
psychotherapy, when you are depressed, of course, but also
Mhm.
if you're burned out or
Yeah.
overly stressed. A therapist is trained. You're essentially a therapist, Denise, as a consultant and a coach. They're trained to help us pick out
Yeah.
the things that are so overwhelming, so difficult, and it just helps to have a sounding board.
Yeah.
Sure, your good friend is sort of like a therapist. They listen and they empathize with you, but a therapist or a coach or a consultant can say, "Hang on, let's go back and visit that piece again and see how you feel about that." And they're trained to help us sort through the mess.
Yeah. Yeah. I use the analogy, it's the infamous can't see the forest for the trees, right?
Right,
And when you're in
right.
the middle of it, it's hard to see your way through, but it is so possible.
It is. And
Yeah.
women do so many things.
Mhm.
We are mothers, we're grandmothers, we're friends, we're aunts, we are neighbors,
Mhm.
we are caregivers,
Yeah.
we work, we're co-workers.
Yeah.
We're spouses, we're partners. I mean, I don't think men do half the things we do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
I,
true.
I, I think we just take on so much, and that's a cultural thing. That's
Yep.
not our fault. That's our
Yep.
culture that
No.
has taught us to take on so much. And then when we
Mhm.
can't handle it, we feel guilty because our culture says, "What do you mean? Why can't you handle it? I mean, everybody else does." Well, Denise and I are here to tell you no, everybody doesn't.
No.
None of us can do everything.
Yeah.
And if we do a lot of it, it's really difficult.
Mhm.
And you cannot do it all unless you take care of yourself.
Exactly. Exactly. And we are by no means saying that those roles are not important. They are absolutely important
Right,
for
right.
sure. What we are missing is filling our own cups up. And I like to suggest that we need to do that first. So your priority list, I always see how can we bump that up to third instead of fifth, right? Or
Yeah.
how can we and yes, day-to-day stuff happens, but when we carve out whatever it is and however you need to what I call ground yourself in
Mhm.
your you-ness and
Mhm.
start to discover who you are and what lights you up. It could be something that you thought of when you reflect back to when you were a little girl, right? Like you were 8. What did you love doing, right? What did you just, you just had no qualms about going off and doing whatever it was. If you're lost about what is that lights you up, start back there. That's what I say. And it really
Oh,
helps people tune in and go, "Oh, well,
great
that's interesting."
advice. Yeah. What lights you up? And I'm sitting here talking with you, and you and I have both lighted up
Yeah.
talking about these issues because we believe they are so important,
Yeah.
and that women are so capable of so much caring and compassion and empathy, and they just have to take a little bit of that for
Yeah.
themselves.
Yes. It's so true because
Yes.
taking that little bit for yourself, you have got so much of it already inside of you, and giving yourself a little bit of that just makes you light up. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it does. Self care is not
Okay.
selfish,
No, no.
it is necessary.
It is. It's pivotal. It's pivotal for everyone, but primarily you. Yeah.
I was talking with a minister friend of mine when I was in my middle 30s about how busy I was. He said,
Mm,
well, what do you do to, no, and I told him all the things I was doing, and he said, okay, do you ever think of yourself as a cup? I said, no. What do you mean? He said, well, you're pouring yourself out. You're giving here, you're giving there, you're pouring everything out. You're pouring it out. What's left at the end of the day? I said, my cup is empty. I hadn't heard this expression before. Maybe it's relatively new. He said, what do you do to
mhm,
fill up your cup? And I love that analogy
mhm.
because we do, as I said, so many things. We pour parts of ourselves out into our families, our children, our job, our neighbors, our
Yeah.
parents. We're pouring out little pieces of ourselves, and that's fine. But we have to fill up our own cup,
Mhm,
whether it's a bubble bath or a walk around the block
mhm.
or going for some retail therapy.
Yeah, right? Yeah,
There are
for
lots of ways to fill up your cup.
yeah, exactly, exactly, and the consistency to that is part 2, right? So start doing it, whatever that needs to sound like, feel like, be like for you, but
Yeah,
then to start to create a consistency around it, because it's great to do it for a month or 2 and then you drop off and your old patterns continue. So,
right.
I loved your priority
Think of
list.
yourself as a cup. Think of
Yeah.
yourself as a cup. And
Mhm.
you check the oil in your car,
Yeah.
check how full your cup is. Put in your dipstick and go, man, I don't think I might be running a little up low on energy and
Yep.
compassion and caring, and maybe I need to replenish my little cup.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a way to think about it that
Yeah.
is, I think, a great analogy.
Mhm. Yeah,
Fill up
it's
your cup is not an overestimation. It is correct.
mhm. For sure, for sure. I have the question here that I wanna ask. How
Oh,
does
okay.
a professional working mother come to believe that she is a good enough mother?
Thank you for asking that most difficult question. We
Mm,
start out wanting to be perfect,
mm,
and generally we like our jobs and we want to do a good job. We love our children. We want to be good mothers, but we cannot be there for every moment. If we're a working mother, we're not stay at home.
yeah,
Someone else is looking after our kids and we're at work. And I think to be a good enough mother, you recognize that with your work, you're making a difference. And then when you're with your kids, you're making a difference by being present for them.
Yeah.
And that is being a good enough mother.
Mm-hmm.
Children do not need us 100% of the time. They need us when it's important, but not every minute of the day.
Yeah. I love that. I'm what's coming to mind for me is quality time versus quantity time. And I used to do a trick when I came home from my days as an elementary school principal. There were challenges involved in that. And so I would literally hang my worries outside, fit in my mind on the tree outside. And then I would come in and I would be in the room when I was in the room. So I would leave everything out there until the kids went to bed or whatever, and then start the day. And that was a process because, right, we carry it. Was what do I need to? You're always thinking how to solve the next problem. How am I right? So I love that. I love that quality time.
It's,
And
it is just it's a process that we each go through. If we work a lot, if we like our jobs, if we work for more than just money because we like what we do, it can make us feel guilty. And that's not the point, because we're better mothers being better people and being happy with that part of our life. And whether you hang it on a hook or hang it on the tree or put it in the back of your mind when you get home with your kids, even adult children, you're a good enough mother. You're a better mother. Having every aspect of your life work in its way.
Yeah, love it. I love it. What a great conversation. We could go on and on and on. I know we could. Tell us the title of your book, and we'll put it in the show notes too. But I'd love to know what's the book.
My book is titled "So Many Babies: My Life Balancing a Busy Medical Career and Motherhood." It tells stories of the NICU and stories of my making all the mistakes that working mothers make, all the challenges. And it's kind of the two stories, the NICU stories and my motherhood stories are woven together. And I wrote it in a way to provide reassurance to other working mothers that you make a difference, that what you're doing is hard, and that we all struggle. No one does this role perfectly. No one is the perfect working mother. But we can be good enough mothers. And I hope that my book helps other women figure that out. And the NICU stories are really neat too.
I bet. That's awesome. We will put it in the show notes so that people can see where to get it from.
Good.
And then I'm going to share also in the show notes your websites. You've got two websites that you have. One is susanlandersmd.com/burnout capitalized. And the other one is susanlandersmd.com/solutions-for-mums.
Right. Those are two free offerings. One is the checklist for burnout. The other is a solutions guide. I hope you'll look at it, Denise.
Yes, for sure.
It's a little simplistic, but it gets them thinking about ways to start filling up their cup.
Love it. That's amazing. What a beautiful opportunity to access. And after I'm done, I'm going to jump over and grab those and start taking a look. I love it. It has been an absolute pleasure. I loved our conversation. We'll have to come back and do it again and add, because there's so much more we can talk about.
My best friend from college, she and I have been friends for 50 years. She was an elementary school principal.
Okay.
We recently took a trip together, and it was like we had never missed a day. And she would tell
love
me
it.
stories about how hard it was to be a principal, and I would tell her stories about how
Yep.
hard it was to be a doctor. And we were just so proud of each other and just enjoying being grandmothers and agonizing over our adult children
Yep.
going this way and that way. It was amazing. It was
That's
amazing.
awesome. I love that. That's amazing. That is amazing. There's a real power in friendship connection that lasts like that.
Well, anybody who is an elementary school principal is on the top of a big pillar. You have to have
Well,
so much patience and understanding to do that job.
it was wonderful. I retired in 2018,
Uh-huh.
and it was perfect timing for me. 31 years in the career, and I loved all of it. But I knew.
So you're like me, you retired and then
Yeah.
you wanted to keep giving and
Yep.
keep doing and keep making a difference. And
Yes.
we have these kind of new careers, and your listeners need to know that they can do whatever they want.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. That's anything is possible.
Yes,
Anything at all. Yeah. Don't
right.
limit ourselves because we're hit a certain age or I've retired and now what? When you were talking earlier about, a working mom, I stayed home with our firstborn for the year. And I said to my husband, 6, 8 months in, I said, I always dreamed I would be the at-home mom, and I said, "I
Uh-huh.
can't do this
Oh,
and be the best person, be the best mom I can if I'm an at-home mom." I knew it.
right,
It just didn't align with what I thought, and that was a
right,
big transition to even think like that, let alone say it out loud. So it's
right,
like
right.
I was able to drop that guilt and go, just what you were talking about, me doing what I needed to do for me, by me, because of me, my teaching
Yes.
career is what made me the mom that I could be. If I were a stay-at-home mom, I wouldn't have been happy. I wouldn't have been as fulfilled because it just wasn't who I was, right?
That's so beautiful. I love
Yeah.
that story.
So, on that note, we are going to finish our conversation, and I'm going to share with the audience. First of all, make sure you check those show notes because on the bottom, how to connect with Susan, how to get those incredible free opportunities that she has in those websites. And if you have not been a part of our amazing community, we have weekly newsletters. Please subscribe because we provide words of encouragement, tips, strategies every Monday and Friday. And if you're new to my world, I also do free hotspot coaching in a private Facebook group called Empty Nesters. And we have, of course, this live stream every Tuesday. I'm on a mission to help change lives, making a difference for moms. So if you have any question about what's in store for you, send me a DM, hop on a free discovery call, let's chat. And change can happen in your mind, but real change happens when you actually step in and take action. And that's what Susan helps with. That's what I help with. And we are here for you. So make sure that you reach out. Do this for you, by you, because of you. Thank you so much, Susan, for being my guest today. And we will say goodbye to everyone and have a wonderful day.
Bye.